Mike Harrington, Buffalo News Sabres columnist here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. After a big day for the Sabres on Friday at the NHL trade deadline approached, you didn't know what kind of moves Kevyn Adams was going to make, and the general manager made a big one. One that really wasn't that expected. Maybe Dylan Cozens being dealt with something we'd heard rumored about in the past, but acquiring a guy like Josh Norris from the Ottawa Senators, not really on the list, a former 35-goal scorer who has had shoulder problems in the past. Traded Ottawa, ended up coming to Buffalo now for Dylan Cozens in a big move for the shifting of this core. And that really is one of my biggest takeaways from the trade deadline, that Kevyn Adams kind of fell on his sword a little bit here on Friday, admitting this team hasn't been good enough, admitting he needed to shake up this core, and it was a major change. He wasn't looking to trade Dylan Cozens, but he got an opportunity to get another relatively young player, but one with experience, one with a past in the league, 35-goal scorer, who plays in all situations. You'll see Norris on the penalty kill, on the power play. Should be a big boost for the Sabres, and it's one of those players you want to move into your lineup and make part of your core moving forward, exactly like we saw last year when they traded Casey Middlestat for Bowen Byram, another hockey trade for Kevyn Adams. And he made it very clear to the reporters that they were open about being open for business with the league this year, and they wanted to make that kind of hockey trade. He's 2 for 2 the last 2 years making hockey trades. He needs to do more during the season, in my mind. That's where Kevyn Adams has failed. He did a lot in the offseason. You may disagree with some of the moves, but he made a lot of moves. He's been pretty good at the trade deadline here in the season. And that was one of the discussion points we had. He admitted it was an emotional day trading Dylan Cozens. I saw Dylan Cozens in the Sabres hotel. He was very emotional in our brief interaction. I don't think he really thought this was going to go down this way. He thought he was part of this core, and he no longer is. So what Kevyn Adams said to us that I found very interesting was, you can't be afraid of changes. You can't be afraid of making big trades. And while that may be true, I did go back to the 13-game winless streak in December, and I asked him, how can you basically watch your season go down the drain without making a move, without a waiver claim, without a minor league demotion, without a minor trade, without a big trade? And he did say there simply were no pressure points for other teams like there are at the trade deadline. And the Sabres were unable to pull a trade off. And Adams even said, what was the quote here? As hard as I was pushing to do stuff that you guys may not even know about, you need someone else to partner up with. What was I going to do? Make an emotional decision just to make a trade? Well, maybe that might have been the move. I think I would have certainly been a little emotional when that losing streak hit double digits, but he stood pat. The season went away. Now, I really did like some of the things Adams did in this press conference compared to the one in December, which went off the rails. He was a lot more introspective in this one, and he laid it right out there. What do we need to do better as a team? And I need to start with myself. What do I need to do better? And I really like the fact that Adams talked about a lot of self-reflection. He has beat himself up over this 13-game winless streak. Should he have done something? He didn't at the time. I think there's no question he feels like that. Now, I imagine Terry Pegula probably told him that as well. The answers were in the room has kind of become a catchphrase narrative. Pegula coming to see the Sabres in Montreal in December. Adams wouldn't get into that today. That's going to stay in the room forever, I think. The players had the same answer when we talked to them about that a couple months ago. But they need this team to compete. They need this team to be harder. Ray Ferraro on ESPN really took this team to task for their play in Tampa in terms of scrums. Rasmus Dahlin was kind of left little bit alone in a couple of these scrums, one of which involved Dylan Cozens. And, of course, we had the Tage Thompson incident last month against New Jersey as well. And Adams said that. We need to have that five-man pack mentality. They need to have each other's back all the time. They haven't. They have to keep working on that point. Again, some of this stuff in this press conference today, Adams volunteered. We were going to ask, and he volunteered, they need to find a partner for Owen Power. That's one of their priorities here. A lot of people said, make sure you ask what he's going to do about finding a partner, Owen Power. We didn't even have to ask. He brought it up. Adams said he's going to do a lot more self-evaluation. And I think he said the one thing that I really liked, and I got to find the quote here. I need to be better in terms of every single part of my job. I haven't been good enough. I haven't put a team on the ice capable of being in the playoffs, even though when I look at our talent and I look where we are compared to other teams, I think we should be there and be in the fight. This is a team top of the league in 5-on-5 goals. Number one, in fact, in first period goals. But when you have an atrocious power play, when you blow leads, that's the 7th loss of the season, leading by multiple goals Thursday night in Tampa. When you don't get enough saves, goals against 29th in the league. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has just not been good enough. Your starting goalie making almost $5 million is a 3.14 goals against average and a save percentage under 900. That's not going to be good enough. So the Sabres simply have not been able to put everything together here. Terry Pegula empowered Adams at this trade deadline. If you were thinking there was going to be a new GM here, and that could still be in doubt, I suppose, if the team really struggles here in the last month of the season. But Terry Pegula empowered Adams to make changes. Adams just wasn't dumping players for picks. He didn't just re-sign Greenway and Zucker, 2 pretty good signings just for the record, and leave some trades and roster moves to the next guy. There were some moves made off of this club today. Henry Jokiharju's been here a few years. He got traded to Boston. Dylan Cousins out. That's a big move. Terry said to Kevyn Adams, we need to improve. We need to get better. And that's one thing that it's obvious to everybody, but Kevyn Adams also said Terry Pegula empowered him to make these moves. And when push comes to shove, it's my call. So there you have it. I think that pretty much ends any talk of the new general manager. Maybe there'll be a president of hockey operations here someday. Probably not. Terry Pegula doesn't like that model. They're not going to run it back. You signed Zucker and Greenway, but you traded Dylan Cousins. There'll be more moves off this team. They have to get better in goal. I did like the fact that Adams understood that this just wasn't good enough. This wasn't close to being good enough this year. And there's still a month to go, and some things can happen here, and we want to see some individual accomplishments. But they have to get better. The GM has to be better. He has to have a big summer. And I do think he needs to react more to what he sees in front of him on the ice during the season. There had to be something he could have done during that 13-game winless streak. I mean, I said at the time, and I still say, I would have waived Nicolas Aube-Kubel the morning after that terrible loss in Montreal when he made that awful turnover in the first 15 seconds of the game, just to prove your point. Just to prove your point, I would have waived a veteran player like that for a big mistake. But they didn't. We know where the Sabres are now. Josh Norris is here. Dylan Cousins is in Ottawa. And now they just try to finish out the string of the season here. But there are some tough games ahead. And let's see how they compete. How they compete Saturday night in Florida. How they compete Monday in KeyBank Center against Edmonton. Next Wednesday in Detroit. Next Saturday back home against the Vegas Golden Knights. It's a rugged schedule. So that's my quick thoughts on Kevyn Adams here in Fort Lauderdale as the Sabres get through the NHL trade deadline. This is Mike Harrington. Please keep looking for more videos, more podcasts, and all of our coverage in the Buffalo News and BuffaloNews.com.